Hi, I'm Emily Davis, and this is Two Extremes stories about my life with bipolar disorder and how I try to kick it in the ass. So, it's been 2 years since I last uploaded a Two Extremes video, and I'm very excited to start doing them again. I recently began a Patreon so that I could be able to put out more content into the universe. You'll find that in the description, the link is there. Speaking openly about mental health is a passion of mine, and it's something that I'm kind of bummed I abandoned, but I'm very excited to get back into. So, thanks for being here and watching this video. I hope you get something out of it. Today is Friday, February 28th, and it is the last day of the National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. And so that has inspired this video today. I'm going to be talking about my history with anorexia and bulimia. I know that isn't explicitly related to bipolar, but I think stories are powerful. Stories can educate, stories can help people feel less alone. So whether you have somebody in your life you know that is struggling with an eating disorder and you just want to understand it better, or you yourself have struggled with an eating disorder and you want to hear a voice that can commiserate with you, I think storytelling and being honest and vulnerable with people is a very effective tool, and so that's why I'm doing this today. Let's do it. I started struggling with an eating disorder when I was 8 years old. I struggled in my social life, and I came from a family who often was dieting. Now, I don't say that to blame them. I own my choices and my disorder and what led up to it entirely. But I will say that my parents dieted a lot, so I never associated negativity with dieting. If anything, dieting was kind of shown in a positive light. Rather, I began to develop a fear of gaining weight or becoming fat, and so I saw what I did as preventative behaviors. I have vivid memories of restricting myself at breakfast rather than eating a full bowl of cereal. I would eat half a bowl of cereal. I remember freaking out every time I grew out of a pair of jeans, which is ridiculous. I was 10. That's what happens, but the fear became something that was very hard to escape from, and I think it was compounded by my social struggles. Adolescent changes didn't make anything easier. I think I went from being afraid of becoming fat to slowly convincing myself that I was overweight or that I could stand to lose some weight, and I think dieting and subsequently purging became a way to punish myself. It was a form of self-harm. I briefly experimented with cutting, but that never really stuck. What was far more powerful for me and something that became much more addictive to me was purging and restricting. It was a way to punish myself. It was a way to ensure that I wouldn't gain weight. And it was a way to feel a sense of control over my life, because every time I went to school, I felt like it was just going to be another day of being beaten down by people. I really did struggle with bullying. It was horrible. Up until I turned 16, I participated in eating disorder behaviors, but I never really fell down the rabbit hole. I would restrict routinely, I would purge routinely, but it was not something at that point that had engulfed my entire life. But that did change when I turned 16. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted to feel valued in the eyes of somebody, and so I persisted in what was a pretty miserable relationship for 8 months. When he broke up with me for my friend, I took it really, really hard. I crashed into a pretty bad depression, and the self-loathing was at an all-time high. And I decided that I was going to not dabble in the art of dieting, but I was going to go for it. I became very involved in these toxic online communities that have existed probably now for 20 years that are pro-eating disorder related. These same people, men and women, would post images of themselves in the hopes that people would criticize them and badger them into continuing on with their dieting, whether or not they were thin or overweight. They were looking to be bullied into dieting. That's the idea behind posting these pictures. These communities are often referred to as pro-Ana for anorexia or pro-Mia for bulimia. And they were prevalent as hell back then, and they're probably even more prevalent now. For those of you who aren't familiar, they are incredibly dark, incredibly toxic places. And I became engulfed in that world. I became engulfed in doing these really dumb diets. There was a diet called the 2468 diet, which is as extreme as it gets. You would do 200 calories one day, followed by 4, followed by 6, followed by 8. 800 calories at the max of this diet is not enough to sustain life. Your body requires 1,200 calories a day just to function at a base level. And these diets are advocating for extreme restriction. Entire meals I would have of just like celery and mustard. And I would load up on that and not really put any calories into me, but try to feel full. I started off wanting to be 99 pounds, and I thought if I'm under 100 pounds, I'll be happy, I'll be excited, I'll feel better about myself, and I'll feel like I accomplished something meaningful. But the truth is, that's never the case when you have an eating disorder. It's just never the case. It's like being an alcoholic wanting one drink. You're not going to want one drink. You're going to have one drink and you're going to want another drink and another drink and another drink. It's the same thing with anorexia and bulimia and weight loss with an eating disorder in general. I started off wanting to be 99 pounds, and when I got to 99 pounds, that thrill was there for a minute or two. And then you again want to chase the dragon. And so I told myself, well, I can do 95 pounds. And I went from doing 99 pounds or 95 pounds to getting down to 74 pounds. And my health was significantly impacted to the point where I had to go to inpatient care in order to make sure I didn't die. It was a really hard time, and not only did it impact me, but my family. Just seeing what they had to go through because of all of that was crazy. I remember my mom, a couple weeks before I got admitted, she looked at me with just absolute terror and heartache, and she said, "You're probably going to be in your 70s next week." And the little part of my brain that still had like a semblance of empathy felt bad for her, that I was causing her this much grief. But the sick part, which had taken up the majority of my mental space, was thinking, oh wow, that would be amazing to be in my 70s next week. Like, who wants to be in their 70s? 70 pounds is not, that's a child's weight. But in my mind, the idea seemed tantalizing to me. I remember my dad, we were in therapy one day, and group therapy, and this was again right before I left. And the therapist asked him, she said, "Do you worry that your daughter's going to die?" And my father responded, "I feel like she already has." And that was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. And that's a memory that's going to last with me forever. He felt like I was already gone. And 2 weeks later, I was admitted to inpatient care. I went to a place called Remuda Ranch. I was there for 2 months. When I went into Remuda, I was expecting to go to a place that was like Dude Ranch or summer camp, where we'd all sit around a campfire and ride horses and have fun and try to feel good about ourselves. There were horses, but that's the only similarity to my fantasy that existed. It was insane. You have very little freedom in inpatient care, especially with regard to eating disorders. Because of my condition and how bad it was, they would not let me walk for 2 or 3 weeks. They would cart me around on a golf cart. They would watch me when I showered. They would watch me when I used the bathroom. They would draw doodles of my defecations. We were only allowed 1 or 2 phone calls a week if we were eating. We weren't allowed to go outside. If we were eating, we could. But if we weren't, you were trapped indoors. If you didn't comply with their wishes, if you didn't eat your entire meals, if you didn't eat your snacks, they would make you stay in your bed. You could only listen to Christian music. You could only do coloring books and things like that. It was just... I nearly lost my damn mind in there. I really did. And for the first 2/3 of my time in there, I fought them tooth and nail. For instance, my condition was critical enough that they suggested to my parents that a feeding tube be inserted through my nose and into my stomach, where they would then be able to pump food into me at night. Even to this day, now that I'm in recovery and I have no intentions of ever getting back to that place, to this day, that terrifies me. There were girls who did that, and I applaud them for their bravery. It was not happening with me. The idea of being in a room at night and having some machine, they called it the machine, pump food into me, like beyond my control, and being able to, and I could hear it at night with the other girls who had the tubes just churning it into them, and no. But I said a lot of horrible things, and I did a lot of horrible things to people, and I was ill, and I was refusing to get better. The thing that really turned the tide for me is when I saw my family after 6 weeks. We had something called Family Week, where they would come in and we'd do a bunch of group therapy. It was a big celebration. And seeing them just flooded me with so many emotions because I had missed them so much. And going through that Family Week and intense therapy with them, and just being really honest on how we could communicate more effectively and work on things to better ourselves and our relationships as a family, it really inspired me. It really opened my eyes. I put them through absolute hell. I put myself through absolute hell, but I took them with me. And at some point, I knew that if I ever wanted to go home and not drain their wallet and not drain them of their joy in life, I had to start complying. And so I did it with a grimace, and I did it biting my tongue the whole time, but I managed to gain the weight back that was required. I went to the transitory period for a month. And finally, I got to a place where my parents decided that they thought I had shown enough improvement that it was time to let me come home. Shortly after I left Remuda life, my grandmother was on her deathbed. And the last time I saw her alive, it was about a week before she passed away. But I was hugging her, and I think it was the last thing she said to me. She hugged me and she said, "The last time I did this, I could feel your ribcage." And it terrified me. And she said, "Promise me you'll never do that again." And that stuck with me. How could that not stick with you? The last thing that your grandmother ever tells you. It's this woman who I idolized and loved deeply. Promise me you'll never do that again. It wasn't easy, and I didn't get better overnight. I came home and I relapsed pretty significantly. The thing that I think really mostly helped me recover, aside from my family, who I credit for saving my life 100%, this idea that I was incapable on my own for getting better, that I was powerless over getting better. I hated hearing that because I was the person who got myself to that place. I was the person, by my own actions and through a series of events, I got myself into that kind of critical state. How could I not get myself out of it? Obviously people are there to help me. People are there to nourish me back to life. But once I'm back to a place where I'm healthy and I'm cognizant and I'm mentally more stable, how is it that I have no control over it? How is that true? And so that really became the motivating force for me, was I'm going to show you guys that I can absolutely get over this, that I'm not powerless, that I'm very capable. When you have an eating disorder and you engage in that eating disorder, you will end up sacrificing every good thing in your life to become a servant to that eating disorder. You will sacrifice your friendships. You will sacrifice your free time. You will sacrifice your hobbies. You will sacrifice your happiness. And you will tell yourself every time you got one number less on the scale that you are happy, but that happiness fades and it's false. You are chasing a goal that does not exist when you have an eating disorder. You will never be thin enough, and that thinness will never make you happy enough. And I just got so tired of living that kind of life. I knew that I could be missing out on so much, being so concerned with something that is so unimportant. Being a skeleton is not worth all that devotion mentally. My biggest fear is being old someday and looking back on my life and being like, wow, I blew so much of that on something so dumb. Be healthy. Strive to maintain a healthy weight. But to let something like that consume you, I don't want to be controlled like that ever again. And that's not to say that I'm, 100% better and now I wake up every day going, I love my body and everything's great. That's not true. Maybe there are people out there who've struggled with an eating disorder and now they've come to a total place of acceptance and love. And I'm happy for those people. I'm not that person. I do still struggle with my body image. There are days where I still wish I could drop some weight. And sometimes I worry that might always be the case. But I'm not actively doing anything dumb because I realize now that there is so much more to life than letting yourself be consumed by something like that. So if you're watching this and you have an eating disorder, know that you're not alone, and also know that there's so much more out there for you. But you don't have to hate yourself. And you can get to a point where you come to appreciate yourself and find value in yourself and not care so much. Anyway, I just hope this video was valuable to anyone who watched it, and I hope you got something out of it. So thank you for watching it. Thanks for listening to another one of my rambles. I do intend on making these videos bi-monthly, so please, if you enjoy them, subscribe or keep up with me via social media. And again, if you want to help support what I do, Patreon link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching this Two Extremes. I'll be doing more of them, and I will see you then. All right. Thanks, guys.